Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Vanessa Mincolla, who's here to share with us Rethinking Our Relationship with Food. What if your cravings, habits, and choices around food could completely change, freeing you to enjoy eating without guilt or confusion? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Holistic health coach Vanessa Mincolla offers a unique approach to integrative healing. Vanessa's work embodies the personal application of her father, Dr. Mark Mincolla's whole health healing system, combined with her professional background in human services. Vanessa utilizes philosophies of classical Chinese medicine and adapted methods of applied kinesiology in tandem with concepts of wellness coaching and motivational interviewing to encourage healing on a multidimensional level and empower clients as they access the healer within themselves. Vanessa's extensive experience providing mental health services to a wide variety of populations, as well as her graduate studies in holistic nutrition and experience working alongside Dr. Mark Mincolla, have shaped a unique career path which encompasses a practitionership that facilitates true mind and body healing. So welcome to the show, Vanessa Mincolla.
Hi, Marianne. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, what a great honor it is to have you here and to talk about this. I mean, goodness, you make such a huge impact in the lives of so many. What I'd love to talk about is the impact that's really happening to us with our fast, convenient, based way of eating and how that's impacting our health.
Yeah, I think there's so many different impacts that it has on our health to prioritize convenience over nutrition. And overall, it leads to a lack of appreciation for our food. We've lost the value that's placed on home cooked meals and homegrown foods. And there's less time and attention that's devoted to the cooking and eating process, which ultimately is going to lead to less nourishment. What you give into your cooking and eating process is what you get back from it. So, the more time, care, and attention you give to cooking and eating, is more nutrients that you get back from your food. So, ultimately, there's less understanding and less prioritization of the role that nutrition plays in overall health. It's not being talked about amongst the greater part of our society. It's not being taught about in schools. It's not being talked about in families or communities. So we've lost our connection to the concept that food is fuel first. And ultimately, the biggest consequence that we're suffering is chronic illness. So fast foods are, most often prioritized and they're nutritionally devoid. So it's perpetuating inflammation and inviting disease into our lives.
So, why do you think we've strayed so far away from viewing food as fuel for our body and our minds?
I think that ultimately society is just so fast paced and we're prioritizing other things. We're prioritizing work, we're prioritizing emails, social media, time with our families, whatever else it is. And time is money. So ultimately, there's no cost to cutting corners. Every shortcut that you make, it doesn't save you any trouble in the long run. And especially when it comes to fueling your body. So good nutrition should be priceless, but I think we've lost sight of the importance of it.
So, how much is our eating behavior, you believe, like shaping our perception rather than genuine need for nutritional knowledge?
Yeah, I think that our eating habits are largely shaped by our perception. So our behaviors are always preceded by our thoughts. So the way that we think and feel about food is, of course, going to influence the way that we interact with it. And part of the problem is that there's a lack of general knowledge with regard to how to appropriately fuel our bodies. Again, it's not being talked about. It's not something that's being taught in schools. It's not something that's being talked about in a lot of families. There's not a lot of value that's placed around the concept of nutrition. There's a significant amount of even medical professionals that haven't really been educated on how food can be used as medicine to heal the body. So ultimately, you only know what you know. And when and where these things are being talked about, there's a lot of conflicting messages as well. So it does get confusing and overwhelming to know what foods are best to support our bodies.
Well, isn't that the truth? I've heard chocolate is good, then chocolate's bad. So, how do we navigate through all of that?
Yeah, and I think it's really there's no one size fits all approach to this. That's the key. Everybody is so different, and we all have these different energetic constitutions, and the way that our bodies interact with the energy of food is going to be different across the board. The way that my body interacts with chocolate is going to be different from the way that your body interacts with chocolate. And chocolate itself is not good or bad, it's both. There's a good side to the coin and there's a bad side to the coin. The good side to the coin is that there's a lot of antioxidants in chocolate. And those antioxidants are going to improve our immune systems and our overall health. The bad side to the coin might be that A, it's sugar. Sugar, of course, is going to feed inflammation. And then B, if you're allergic to chocolate, right? If your energetic constitution doesn't respond well to the energy of chocolate, then we're going to start to see some symptoms show up.
So, how do we determine based on the foods that are presented in front of us? How do we determine like what we should eat, maybe what we should stay away from?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you listen to your body, that's a good place to start. A lot of times when we eat something, we have an immediate reaction to it. I sort of use the metaphor of like when you walk into a room full of people, you instantly have an idea of what the energy in that room is. If people are laughing, your body's going to feel the laughter, you feel the happiness, you feel the joy. If people are crying or yelling, you feel the anger, you feel the sadness. It's sort of the same thing with food. If you're going to eat a meal that's loaded with nutrients and agrees with your energetic constitution, it's going to make you feel healthy and strong. If you eat a meal that's not aligned with your constitution and it's not loaded with nutrients and fuel for your body, then you're going to feel the impact of that. And we see that there's like food hangovers that can happen. So if you binge on sugar, you binge on fast food, you feel like crap the next day. And a lot of the people that I work with, even, we clean up their diet and for months on end they eat really well. And then all of a sudden a holiday comes around, 4th of July, there's a barbecue, they eat cheeseburgers and french fries and maybe even drink a beer or something. And then the next day they're like, oh my gosh, Vanessa, I haven't felt that awful in such a long time. What happened? And I talk about the idea of if you mop the floors in your house and then somebody walks through with muddy shoes on, you're so much more inclined to see that dirt on a clean floor. It's the same thing with your body. After you detox and cleanse for so long, you've got a clean environment inside. And then, you walk through with the muddy shoes and eat the cheeseburgers, and you sort of wake up feeling not so good the next day.
What do you think has influenced our idea of normal or acceptable food to eat daily?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different influences. Media being one of them. I think media is such an influence on the way that we think and behave overall. And marketing in general too. I mean, even at the gym, they've got all of these televisions up in front of the treadmills and they're advertising for Dairy Queen and McDonald's and stuff while people are exercising. So I think media and marketing is huge. I think family is a really big influence. Culture is a really big influence. We're brought up with certain ways of eating. We're brought up with certain meals that are associated with happiness and good times or holidays and things like that. We might even learn to seek comfort from those foods that are associated with happiness and good times. So upbringing, family, culture, those things play a really big role as well. I think too, we all have different experiences with food as far as the way we were brought up. And I recall working with one particular client who had divorced households, and there was a lot of stress and overwhelm around food, where one household was trying to preach about health and wellness, and the other household was yelling at her for cooking broccoli because it smelled bad. So here she is conflicted between these two different angry parents and these two different viewpoints, trying to figure out which way's up, essentially. So if there's a lot of stress and overwhelm around our relationship with food and our upbringing and our environment, then I think that that makes it a little bit complicated to figure out where we stand as well.
Are there certain convenience foods that masquerade as healthy options but actually could be harming us?
Yeah, there's a lot of those. I think, some examples include things like yogurt. Yogurt is, marketed as something that's a great source of protein. But in reality, most brands of yogurt have way more sugar than they do protein. They're packed with artificial flavoring. And dairy is a huge allergy food, too, that a lot of people don't realize that they're allergic to. And protein bars, granola bars. That's another example that I'd add to this list. Again, tons of refined sugar. A lot of them have inflammatory oils. Yeah, so that would be another one. And then I'd say fruit juices as well. Some of them, not all of them, and some smoothies, depending on their ingredients, of course. But most of them are going to be loaded with sugar, stripped of fiber, and calorically dense too. And then I'd say frozen meals too. So those things are going to be packed with preservatives and high in sodium. So all of these are marketed as healthy options, but in reality, if you look at the fine lines, they're not.
Such good advice. I mean, we've never known that about yogurt because they do pitch that as, hey, this is a really high protein option for you, but they kind of miss telling us about the high sugar impact.
Yeah, it's a quick, easy option too, right? I mean, we're all looking for quick, easy options if we're prioritizing convenience over nutrition. But yogurt's not one of them that I would recommend.
So, what does it mean to be conscious about food in today's fast paced world?
I mean, I think it largely has to do with practicing mindfulness around eating. So pay attention, not just to what you're eating, but to who you're eating with and when you're choosing to eat. What's driving your decision to eat? Is it hunger? Is it a craving? Is it something else? Is it just that everybody else is eating? So it's sort of habitual. Um, where you eat, what's going on around you while you're eating. These things all play a role in your interaction with food and the way that your body processes it.
So, should we slow down when we're eating? Does that affect like our digestion and our overall well being?
Absolutely. If you think about it, if you do anything too fast, it's not going to be thorough, right? That's kind of the catch 22 about trying to multitask, is that you end up cutting corners. You want to get more stuff done more quickly, but in reality, you end up sacrificing the quality of your work. So, yeah, I'd say the same thing is true about eating. You eat too fast, you don't break down your food as well.
So, how can people make this transition from eating out, all that convenient food to eating with intention without feeling really overwhelmed or restricted?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's about making small moves to make larger changes in the long run. So, for example, swap a sweet treat for a piece of fruit, right? That's a small change that we could make. Sugar cravings are going to happen. We're still human. But there's lesser evil options out there. So figuring out how to swap out one option for another that's a little bit more nutritionally sound could be one small change that you could make. You could also familiarize yourself with reading food labels. You could pay attention to your hunger cues. Again, is it coming from a place of hunger? Is it coming from a craving? You could set a goal to limit your restaurant and fast foods to the weekends only. You could set a goal to have a home cooked meal with your family once a week. You get to decide. This is going to be different for everyone, but I think even just the awareness is a great first step, which is why we talk about the consciousness that we can add to the eating process. As long as you're present with your decision making process, then you're going to be making a big difference in the long run.
Are there simple, like daily practices that can help people reconnect with their bodies when they get these hunger cues?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's about tuning in to what it is that's creating the hunger. Is it a need for nourishment or is it a need for nurturing? I think a lot of times hunger cues are false in the sense that, again, there's this relationship with food that some of us build that we're seeking comfort and we're not seeking nourishment. There's a dopamine response that happens, especially when we eat particular foods, like salty foods, sweet foods, fatty foods, greasy foods. Those things all produce like happy chemicals inside of our brain. So that's where food addiction comes in. So again, it's consciousness, it's presence, it's figuring out what the cue and the triggers are. Am I really hungry? Or is there something else that's going on here? Am I bored? Am I stressed out? Am I sad? Am I anxious? Is there some other kind of void that I'm trying to fill besides hunger? So it's the presence and the consciousness ultimately is the key.
Do you think food has the power to heal? And if so, where should someone start if they want to start eating for healing?
Yeah, I think food absolutely has the power to heal. And again, it's a connection to ourselves, it's a connection to our body, it's paying attention to the way that food makes us feel. A lot of times we have a great awareness of the way that foods interact with our bodies, but we ignore it. We know that the candy doesn't feel good. It feels good going down, it doesn't feel good later on, but we eat it anyway. Again, because there's that dopamine response that we're craving. So yes, I mean I think the presence is a really big key to it, and that's a great way for us to allow foods to teach us about themselves if we just listen to the way that they're communicating with our bodies.
So, can eating with attention really be accessible for and really affordable for people who have like a limited time or income?
Eating with attention, yes. I think that everybody has a different baseline as far as time that's available and income that's available. But yes, eating with attention is accessible to all of us. And I think that to a certain extent, healthy options are available to a lot of us as well. I think not everybody has access to fresh fruits and vegetables, but canned and frozen are optional as well. And I think frozen vegetables and canned vegetables are better than no vegetables. So it's about meeting ourselves in the middle. I think a lot of us want to go to such extremes of perfection, and when we don't hit that extreme of perfection, we just fall off the wagon altogether. So, if we can find some way to meet ourselves in the middle, sometimes that's the best place to start.
So, for the families out there, especially with children, how can they break free from this fast food culture to create a healthier home environment?
Yeah, again, I think awareness is the first step. So I said earlier, you only know what you know. This is not something that's being talked about amongst the greater society as far as the impact that nutrition has on our health and the value that can be placed behind a home cooked meal and a healthy meal. So have an awareness of that as an individual and share that as a value with your family. Share why it's important to you. And other people are either going to hop on board with you or not, and we can't convince anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. But ultimately, if you share the reasons why healthy food and nutrition is so important to you, then a lot of times that's going to strike something inside somebody else, and it's going to make them curious. So lead by example is really kind of what I'm saying. If you have health and nutrition as priorities and values in your life, and you're living very well, and you're happy and you're healthy, other people are going to look at you and say, "Huh, what are you doing? And how can I start to do that?" So, same thing is true for a family system. I think we, as parents, we model what our values and priorities are for our families, and children and family members watch and they listen and they learn. Ultimately, they make their own decisions. But if it's a value and a priority that you hold as the head of your house, then yeah, that's going to make an impact on the rest of the family.
Can you share with us the work that you do at Whole Health Counseling and what that looks like?
Yeah. At Whole Health Counseling, we use energy medicine to be able to get to the root of individuals' symptoms. And so the way that works is through a system called electromagnetic muscle testing. So I've talked a lot today about the energy of our bodies and the energy of foods and how they interact with each other. This system called electromagnetic muscle testing really helps us to pinpoint exactly what that energetic response is between a person's body and the foods that they eat, the supplements that they take, the lifestyles that they lead. As far as what each session looks like, it's different for everybody. That's the beauty of this. The energy system allows us to create a map and kind of a guideline for, what's going on inside the body and what we want to do about that. But as far as, the individual sessions, that's really for me in the way that I practice this, it's very client driven. So everybody needs a different kind of support. Everybody needs a different approach and everybody needs a different style of practitionership and counseling. And so I can give you the tools, I can use this energy work to assess which foods and supplements are going to be best for your body. But then as far as the counseling work itself, I want to ask you what you want to do about it. Marianne, I could give you a list of 10 fruits and vegetables that are, the best for your body and your constitution. And perhaps maybe you every day for the first month, you're really into implementing all of the advice that I give to you. And then, somewhere later on, you fall off the wagon and you say, well, Vanessa, life got in the way. I got stressed out. I had a lot going on. And I haven't really been able to follow it. So that's where the coaching comes in. I get to ask you, well, what's been hard? What are these barriers that are coming up? And how can we work together to create some solutions to keep you on board in a more sustainable way? Yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we do.
So you see a lot of people, this sounds like it's a common thing. They get gung ho and they start. I think most folks do this, and then they start to taper off based on just life happening.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think there's always an ebb and flow to life. And so the same thing is true about any kind of a wellness goal that we set. And I always say to the folks that I work with, not every day are we going to operate at 100% of our capacity. There's some days where we're going to operate at 50% of our capacity. There's other days where maybe it's 70%. But every day is different. And so it's really important for us to meet ourselves where we're at and to ask questions like, what can I do instead of always what should I do? It's a progress over perfection kind of mindset that I try to coach my clients to have. It's continued conversations. If every day is different, then maybe every day our goals should be a little bit different too. So we create goals that are aligned to our best days when we can show up as 100% of ourselves. We also have to create modifications of those goals so that when we're only operating at, 25% on the really, really hard days, we can still do something. We can still take a small step in the larger direction of big changes, but we're not so all or nothing with it that we're just in or out.
It's a little more gradual for people so they can make long-term progress.
Yes, exactly. And it's day by day.
I think that's probably really encouraging for a lot of people to hear because a lot of times especially at the beginning of the year, my goodness, everyone wants to get healthy and start working out. And we're going to set our goals for the year. And then by like week 3, those are pretty much washed away.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I talk about a lot is making choices for our health from a place of love, not fear, right? Because fear is a great motivator, and it's really easy to say, well, I'm going to take great care of myself because I'm afraid of getting sick or I'm afraid of keeping this weight on forever. So I'm going to exercise every single day in January and I'm going to eat all home cooked meals every single day in January. And then you hit your goals and then all of a sudden the fear is not there anymore. So you fall off the bandwagon. But if you're doing these things from a place of love that says, I love myself too much to do anything less than what's really good for me, then that's a sustainable way to approach wellness. And it's a little bit easier to meet ourselves again with that compassion that says, I understand I'm not going to be 100% every day. And I want to stick with this. So I'm going to find ways to do it even on my hardest days.
When people reach out to you, is it commonly because they've hit a major health milestone, some kind of crisis, and they need help?
Yes, that happens often. And really, I mean, I work with all different types of individuals, everywhere from folks, again, that just want to lose weight or reduce their inflammation to folks on the other end of the spectrum that, have stage 4 kidney disease or heart disease or something. But yes, I see that a lot where it's like folks are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and there's this crisis that really scares them into taking care of themselves. And those are the most disciplined clients that you'll meet. But again, at some point, it gets tiring. If it's coming from a place of fear, not love, then it's not sustainable. And so figuring out how to make our our self-care practices sustainable is a large part of what our continued care is about in our practice.
Do you have a client story you can share with us?
Yeah, I've got loads of them. Um, but I'm thinking about this one gentleman in particular who first came to me with stage 4 kidney disease. And when I told him that we needed to remove animal proteins from his diet, he looked at me like I had 6 heads. He's like, "How the heck am I supposed to do that?" But when you're facing something as grave as stage 4 kidney disease, you're going to do whatever it is that you can to get your life back and your health back. So God bless him. He's so motivated, and he made all of the changes that I gave to him diligently. And he came back a couple months later and he said, "Vanessa, my blood work is stellar. And my doctor can't believe it." He asked me what the heck I did. And when I told him it was all nutrition, it looked like he was white in the face and going to fall over backwards. And this sort of thing happens every day, Marianne. We see progress stories like this across the board in our office too, by the way. I'm talking about my clients, but each and every one of the practitioners that I work with, they'll all tell you the same thing. We see miracles happen every single day just by changing our diet. But so, long story short, with this particular client, yes, he made some miraculous changes with his health just through food alone. And then as time went on, of course, he's feeling better. His blood work is looking stellar. So he's like, "Oh, maybe I'll have a little bit of steak here and there. And oh, maybe I'll have a little bit of ice cream with the grandkids. And oh, we're going to Florida on a family vacation next week. And oh yeah, there's going to be some restaurant food and it's hard to eat vegan there. So I'll just eat whatever's on the menu." And then we start to see the blood work look a little yucky again, and he starts to get these episodes of gout coming back. And so long story short, we have to create sustainable ways to approach this health and wellness and this diet, these dietary changes, because yes, you do want to have a little bit of fun, but you want to have fun in moderation in a way that's not going to make these health crises come back. You have that ebb and flow, but you don't want to ebb too hard or flow too far. You want to try and stay somewhere in the middle.
So, for that particular client, how did you determine that animal protein was what he needed to stay away from?
Yeah, so as far as the buildup in the kidneys, that comes from the degeneration of proteins. So it's the way that animal proteins are broken down inside the body and they build up inside the kidneys. That's ultimately why we want to remove animal proteins from the diet.
Okay, well, you blew me away with that one.
Mm.
Do you do muscle testing as well to determine that? How
Yeah.
does
Yeah, electromagnetic muscle testing is done with every single client that I work with. So even if it's not something that we're talking about in these sessions, it's something that's a driving force behind all of the conversations that I'm having with the clients that I work with and behind all of the decision making that I do as far as food suggestions, supplement suggestions, and otherwise.
that is so, and it's interesting because you don't hear a lot of other practitioners using the electro muscle testing to be able to get to a place where they can determine for each person what their nutritional needs or things they should stay away from are.
Yeah, it's used a lot of the time. So electromagnetic muscle testing is an adapted form of applied kinesiology. And applied kinesiology is used a lot of the time in chiropractic businesses. So if you've ever gone to see a chiropractor, they might tug on different parts of your body and say, "Oh, well, this side is weak because of, this particular joint being out of whack." So we use an adapted form of that applied kinesiology to dialogue with the body in a different way. And believe it or not, there are some other practitioners that are starting to pop up around the globe that are using this sort of thing. But our system is very unique. My father, Dr. Mark Mincolla, created this system of electromagnetic muscle testing 40 years ago. And he calls it a root reference system. And through that root reference system, we're able to dialogue with all of the different organs and glands throughout the body and figure out which energetic deficiency or excess is at the root of what ails our clients. So it's organized in a different way than what you see in other offices, and it's applied in a different way than what you would see in a chiropractic industry. Muscle testing is even used from an emotional health standpoint. Dr. Bradley Nelson, I believe is his name. He created something called emotion code, and he uses muscle testing to identify trapped emotions throughout the body. So it is being utilized in different ways, but our system's really very unique in the way that it's organized to really pinpoint the root of what's going on and to address it in a very unique way.
That's one of the many things I appreciate about your practice is that you're able to really dial into each person, their needs. Like coffee may be okay for me, but not somebody else, and tomatoes for somebody, but maybe not for me. So you're able to really kind of dial in what is going on.
Well, and it changes all the time too, Marianne, right? So, say you flunk coffee today, right? It's not so good for you today. You stay away from it for several months at a time. And then maybe at your next follow up in the fall, we check it again and looks like coffee's okay for you today. Maybe not every day, but maybe you start to cycle that back in once in a while, and that's all right. So, your energy is always changing and the energy around you is always changing. So that's why essentially some things we can cycle in and out. We use kind of like a red light, green light analogy in our office, where there's red light foods that are just constitutionally not good for you. Dairy is one of those things for me. I just don't ever do well with dairy. But then there's yellow light foods that we avoid them most of the time. And if we cycle them back in once in a while, that's okay. Wheat is one of those for me. I don't typically do so well with wheat. But if I stay away from it most of the time, once in a while, I have a sandwich or something. It's not going to be the end of the world. So, yeah, so it's constantly changing the way that you're going to respond to these different foods and the way they interact with your energy.
Now, I know you work with other practitioners. Do you only have people come in office and work with them, or do you do virtual appointments as well?
Yeah, we do both. We do in person and virtual. Right now, for myself, I'm only doing virtual appointments. I do have some other practitioners in my office that are offering in person appointments. So we could do both. We could accommodate either or.
And everyone there has been trained by Dr. Mark Mincolla?
Yes, everybody in our practice has been trained under Dr. Mincolla. We all use the same system. We all have slightly different, personalities and different coaching styles, but we all use the exact same electromagnetic muscle testing system. And that really is the driving force behind the work that each and every one of us does.
If you can leave our listeners with one key takeaway to rethink their relationship with food, what would that be?
I mean, I think it would be that perception is a really big piece to this puzzle. So, to change the way that you interact with food, you have to re examine the way that you relate to it. Where does it fall on your list of priorities? How is that helping you or hurting you in terms of your goals? And examine the roots of your relationship with food because your internal environment is going to mirror your external environment. So, if you want to change your life, you have to start by changing your mind.
Well, Vanessa, you're such an inspiration. Where can our listeners go to learn more about your work, make an appointment, and just be part of your community?
Yeah, we have a website, www.markmincola.com. There's an About tab on the website. If you pull that tab down, we have bios for each one of our practitioners. We also have a Facebook page, Whole Health Counseling, and I have all of the social media accounts. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, threads. I tend to update each one of those accounts just about daily with some kind of health and wellness tips.
I'm always following your wellness tips. You have such great advice. I absolutely love them. So thank you for doing those.
Thanks so much, Marianne. I really appreciate the feedback.
And thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Vanessa. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about rethinking our relationship with food. To make an appointment with Vanessa or any of the other practitioners, make sure to visit markmincolla.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.